Well, hello and welcome back. And today we are in Psalm 70. It's kind of a mini version of the last psalm that we just went through. That psalm was quite long. This psalm is only 5 verses, and really is like the last one. Is really a confident plea for help in a very difficult situation. In terms of, again, the arrangement of the Psalms overall, and we know that they've been collected into 5 books. Each of the books ends with a praise, what we do call a doxology. So there's some mind, the mind of the Lord has organized these things in a certain way. And I think the way that it's been organized is that this is leading to the enthronement of the king, which will be in Psalm 72. Now, the enthronement of the king is not an easy path. David is suffering as he attempts to establish his rule over the nation of Israel as God promised he would. And the path for the Messiah is going to be difficult as well. So, this shows us that the path to enthronement, the path to the millennial kingdom, is very hard, extremely difficult. It's fraught with evil people opposing what is happening. And if the Messiah is facing these things, David first and the Messiah later, much more will we need help to stand firm during very hard, extremely difficult times that are fraught with evil people opposing the work of God. As we associate and align ourselves with Him, we're going to be under the same threat, under the same, what we could say, difficulties. We'll be sharing that in with him, as 1 Peter 2, about 22 tells us that if we that we'll be walking with him as well. So I've divided the psalm into 2 sections. As you go through it, it might inform you. One is a plea in verses 1 through 3, and verses 4 through 5 are praise. So plea and praise. And what I often do is in my paper Bible, not my digital Bible that you're looking at here, I'll write out into the margin plea and praise down here to help me guide me through it next time I read it. So let's look closely at our here verse today. Verse 2, let those be ashamed and humiliated who seek my life. Let those be turned back and dishonored who delight in my hurt. Just point out the kind of the artistry and the arrangement of psalms, how psalms are constructed. Again, we have some parallelism going on. Let those be ashamed and humiliated here. And then in this third cola, so each of these are called a cola in this verse. Then this, let those be turned back and dishonored. So I think you can see the parallel between these two. And then who seek my life in the second, and who delight in my hurt in the fourth cola, are again in parallel. They have the same idea, opposition. David is talking about his opposition. And in those first and third cola, he's talking about retribution against them. So you can see how these work together. When we look at that first cola, ashamed and humiliated, again, in my mind, these are internal attributes of the heart, results from knowing that what you have done or what you are doing or is about to do is dishonorable. It's blameworthy, right? And it's going to bring dishonor upon you and blame upon you. And David is asking here, I think, that they be dishonored, that they'd be shamed, that they would feel that internally, his enemies who seek my life. In parallel with that is turned back and dishonored. So one is an attitude, an internal attitude. Turned back and dishonored, I think, are speaking to actions of protection. These are external actions. These are volitional actions. It's a prayer not that just their deeds would be turned back, but let those be turned back. Those actual people, he's asking them to be repulsed, to be turned away, to be defended, um, that their action would be prevented. And they would personally suffer, I think, dishonor, that they would be dishonored, that they would be turned back. So this is very personal. So he's asking for both the internal conviction and the external protection we see here, and specifically against those who seek David's life and delight in his hurt. And we're not talking about here, of obviously, just hurt feelings, right? We're not talking about, say, a passing offense here. We're talking about people who are trying to kill David, people who are trying to kill him, and he's asking for God to protect him, turn them back, dishonor them, make them ashamed and humiliated. I want to show one last thing here before we go on. Did you notice at the beginning in this section of the superscription a memorial? A memorial is a reminder. That's what a memorial is. So this is intended to be the reminder, a reminder to the nation from David's experience, a reminder to them that God can be called on to bring emotional and physical judgment on their enemies in order to protect them. David was set apart by God to be king over Israel. One of the Old Testament principles that we see throughout, particularly the historical books, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, and 1st and 2nd Chronicles, is that as the king, so the nation. So if the king is under attack, the whole nation's under attack. If the nation's under attack, so is the king. What we see here is that David, who was under attack, knows that this is an attack against God's will for God's nation. It's not just against him personally, it's against what God is doing and what he's doing through that nation. So it's reminding the people that they too, they have a stake in this, and they too can call on God to bring that emotional and physical judgment. So in terms of application then, pretty obvious, you and I can pray like this. You and I can be confident that since God answered this prayer to save David's life, that he's going to answer our prayers, which are often so much less. If he could do the greater, he can definitely do the lesser. So he can protect us from people who are mean or dismissive or vindictive, or people who are trying to destroy our reputations. We can pray that the Lord would cause them to be ashamed, that they would be internally feeling humiliated by their actions, that he would prevent their actions and dishonor them as they try to dishonor us. And we can do that. We can do that. Don't be ashamed of that kind of prayer. Don't be embarrassed by it. I've got a kind of a supplementary video that's available on this channel about praying psalms that are what are called imprecatory, asking for the Lord to bring judgment on our enemies. Some guidelines to do that, but specifically today, in terms of response, if you need to, pray this prayer against your enemies today. If you have people who are trying to undermine you, trying to hurt you, trying to harm you in some way, either your person or your reputation, if they are hurtful or disdainful toward you intentionally, you could pray that they'd be ashamed and humiliated and turned back and dishonored. I'd caution you that this is not something you ought to do, that you're not there to shame them or humiliate them. The Lord will do that. So be careful to leave the ultimate outcome in God's hands. It's not in your hands. Vengeance is the Lord's, not ours. So, but be bold in asking God to bring justice on those who are opposing you, especially when you are acting with righteousness and with godliness. So make this prayer your own. This would be one of those prayers where you want to pray specifically. So perhaps instead of let those be ashamed and humiliated, replace those with specific names. Who seek my life, perhaps you replace that with who are trying to destroy my reputation or are disdainful toward me or dismissive or who look down on me. You get the idea. Make this prayer your own, bring it before the Lord, and put it into His hands and step back and see what He does. God bless you, brothers and sisters. Pray this is helpful for you. Pray this is making you equipped to stand firm in the difficult days that we live in. God bless you.